But when DraftKings in particular claims that it's not gambling, it's worth noting that not only have they applied for and received a gambling license in the UK, but according to the Nevada Attorney General, their website once had search engine optimization phrases with multiple instances of the word betting. And sites usually use alt text like that to tell search engines what they are. It's why this show's website is tagged with British Nerd, Brit Dork, News Goof and Birdie Fact Funny Man. So here's the question. How can DraftKings say they are not gambling and 100% legal? Well, daily fantasy sites often point to one particular piece of legislation, the 2006 Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act, or UIGEA. It's to be a very small exception, but through that small carve-out, two multi-billion-dollar businesses have emerged. It's like those lawmakers built a doggy door for a beloved pooch, and then Daily Fantasy came bursting through like a pack of wolves, saying, "We are dogs. It's a doggy door, right? That's for us. We're legally dogs. Woof. Right? Tell them. Woof. Woof. Step aside. Woof." But even the guy who co-wrote that law says it wasn't meant to apply to what fantasy sports have now become.
The U.S. congressman who drafted the 2006 legislation used by DraftKings and FanDuel as proof of their legitimacy is upset. Former lawmaker Jim Leach says it is, quote, sheer schutzpah for the daily fantasy sports sites to pretend the law makes them legal.
Okay. First of all, schutzpah is actually pronounced chutzpah, but the idea that daily fantasy sites are using this law to claim they're not gambling is not chutzpah, it's horse shit. Because that law, interestingly, that law never said fantasy sports were legal. It just said they weren't explicitly illegal under that specific law, but that each state's gambling laws would continue to apply. And in general, most states determine whether or not something is gambling by asking whether it's more of a game of chance or more a game of skill. And if being a game of chance could make you gambling and therefore illegal, it's no wonder that daily fantasy sites like to describe themselves like this.
They are games of skill, and we can prove that through data that we have.
If skill is a predominant factor in the game, then it's a game of skill. And we can show that our game, like traditional fantasy sports, it is skill predominant.
It's legally critical to these companies that they be perceived as games of skill. That's why, every time they talk, you hear the word skills more often than during an underground rap battle. In fact, just this Friday, Daily Fantasy supporters actually held a protest rally outside the New York Attorney General's office with a familiar chant.
Game of skill! Game of skill! Game of skill!
Now, if you're thinking, it's a little odd that ordinary fans were chanting something so legally specific, there may actually be a reason for that.
We're employees of FanDuel themselves because their offices are right here in Union Square.
They used their own employees as protesters. If you are trying to make the argument that you're not a shady, gambling-related company, maybe don't openly stack the deck in your favour. Which is not to say that daily fantasy does not involve skill. It actually might involve a lot more skill than they would like you to be aware of, because this summer a study revealed some shocking numbers.
91% of the profits were won by just the top 1.3% of players during the first half of the baseball season. 85% of players were losers.
85% of fantasy players were losers, which is staggering. In the general population, that number is 40% at best. It essentially breaks down like the day of colonial aggression. This past week, I'm guessing, brought Supreme Court rulings, international conflict, and 7,000 total hours of Major League Baseball games, or in layman's terms, 3 Major League Baseball games. Take that, America's pastime! But the most important story from the past 7 days was, of course, fireworks. We in America love fireworks. Why? Well, because they're like sparkly guns you can shoot at the sky. And that is why Last Week Tonight has brought you comprehensive coverage of every July the 4th fireworks display that happened this week. First of all, parking was a nightmare for you. There were several spots that looked like spots but turned out not to be spots. The experience brought couples of 20 years to the precipice of divorce. Classical music was playing because everything seems like a cultural event when there's classical music there. If they played Vivaldi at monster truck rallies, schools would start taking field trips there. The fireworks themselves proceeded mainly as follows. One red one, exploded. Then a blue one, it also exploded. And then a white one followed and also exploded. Then, of course, red, white and blue all at once. That's fireworks' greatest hits right there. There were a bunch that went like... and there was one that went... and that last one's my favourite. I love a slow explosion. It reminds me of watching video of John McCain over time. But there's... then there were some more regular ones. At this point, the spectators began checking their watches, and then towards the end, a whole shit ton of fireworks all went off at the same time, almost as if the guy running the fireworks said, "Fuck it, let's do them all. I've got American Idol DVR'd." The classical music then reached a crescendo and stopped abruptly, allowing all those in attendance to hear the terrified yelps of all the children and pets nearby. Everyone then applauded like the fireworks were going to take a bow. Then they all stood up, walked back to their terrible parking spots and made the silent agreement not to think about fireworks at all until next 4th of July, when they performed this exact ritual again. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what makes America great. The ability to wholeheartedly embrace excitement while letting disappointment and failure slip away as quickly as you can. That's it. Shotgun yourselves a can of Bud Light. USA! 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 We'll be back next week at 11 with a... Keep chanting! Keep chanting! We'll be back next week with a new episode at 11 o'clock. Until then, chant patriotically at home. We'll see you.